It's Saucy Saturday again, Eric.
I love Saucy Saturdays.
Thank you for singing. Such a delight every time.
That's my gift to the world.
Among others. But,
Yeah.
and today's little topic is also a gift onto the world.
Bread making 101. It's not.
Yeastology.
No, fuck you. It's not yeastology. That's disgusting.
Always a critic. All right. So what does this mean? We're going to talk about like real specific stuff on how to make bread.
Yes.
Because on Thursday, if you listen back, we give you like our very favorite, simplest bread recipe that you can make. And then today we're going to go real deep like we do on Saturdays because we have time.
A little bit of time.
You know, to listen to the nuances and the ins and outs because me and Eric are super dorky. Duh, right? I mean, I think they can tell.
Yeah, I think that's kind of fucking evident.
And we talk about food like this for real. Like,
yeah, no, like we're on the phone and we talk about food with like passion.
Yeah.
Like we talk about food, how we talk about like our partners. Like it's like.
Right. Yeah. Like the food's been there longer.
Right. We actually talk about the food more than we talk about them.
Exactly. Yeah. So if you listen back to that recipe, it kind of gives you an overview. But today we're going to talk about a couple things, right? I first want to touch upon flour. Eric, I know you're a new bread maker, but I want you've played with all-purpose flour, right?
Yeah.
I want you to start playing with bread flour. And so you can see the difference.
Okay.
I think it makes a more chewy bread. It's not quite as like a little bit soft. You know how like you'll see the difference when you make it. So first thing I want you to know is that you can play with flour. Always start with all purpose because it's super inexpensive. But once you start getting in the groove, go ahead and spring for that bread flour. It's not that much more expensive. It has a higher gluten rate or amount or whatever percentage, I guess they would say. And it makes for like, you know how pizza is a little bit chewy, like good Italian pizza?
Right.
That chewiness, like that's what it adds to bread.
Right.
Okay. So that's nerding out. The other thing I want to talk about is salt. What kind of salt do you use?
What salt do I have in my cabinet right now? I don't use the iodide. I don't use the regular iodized salt. I don't use table salt. I usually use sea salt. There's sea salt and there's kosher salt, but I usually use sea salt. I think that's what I have right now in my cabinet is sea salt.
Good choice. I love sea salt in bread and kosher salt. I think honestly, those are the only two salts you should be using in making bread because table salt is too salty and it's really hard to control.
It is.
So I recommend that you always use those two salts, one or the other, and they are interchangeable.
And I bake with it too.
I only bake with, well, you know how it is. One time I went to Eric's house and he didn't have kosher salt. I'm like, I can't cook. This is bullshit.
We have to literally like go to the fucking grocery store just to get kosher salt. $75 later, we have kosher salt and like 10,000 other things in our hand.
Yeah, like I need kosher salt. I need it. I don't know how to salt with the other salt. The other salt tastes like shit to me. Anyway, this is not what it's about. Okay, what else are we going to talk about, Keeter?
Yeast. So you got two types. You have your traditional yeast and you have instant yeast. I use instant yeast. When you use instant yeast, you're only proofing maybe 2 hours. That's really all you need.
What do you mean by proofing?
So proofing, when you combine your ingredients together, so you have this dough and you cover the dough. At this point, you leave in the bowl that you mix it in. So your flour, your water, your salt, your yeast, and you cover it and you proof it. So you're going to let that bread double in size. That dough, that yeast is going to be activated by the warm water. We'll get to water in a minute. By the warm water, and it's going to go ahead and double in size. And with instant yeast, you only need to do one proofing. So usually, I know the recipe is to do 2 proofs, but you just need usually 1 proof and it'll double in size in about 2 hours.
And you can cook it and it tastes good.
Yep, absolutely.
You don't proof your yeast or not proof it, bloom it before you put it in? You just put all that shit in together? You don't have to. You're right.
No, and you just put it all in together.
You can. I have a habit of doing it the other way. I guess it's because they always warn you on cooking shows, like if you don't bloom your yeast, you won't know if it's active. And I believe that.
I mean, like, you know, like I could understand that 45 years ago, but with, 2023, you're using like.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
We pretty much know that it's going to work.
You're right.
And
it is a wasted step. You are right about that. But anyway, it's the way I make it because I'm an old lady.
Sure are.
I'm your mother. No, I love her.
It doesn't matter. It just still makes her a little bit old.
Okay, yeah, yeast. The water also has to be warm, but not hot because yeast is a live thing and you can kill it. So don't kill it. Make it so it's warm water from the tap. It doesn't have to be too hot. just, comfortable. A comfortable temperature, I would say. It doesn't have to be hot.
Correct. It is. Exactly. Put your finger in it and it's warm. So I think someone once said, and I could be totally lying where I heard this, but I think like someone said like around 110 degrees. And like, it's 110 degrees when you put your finger in it and you feel that it's warm.
Yeah, I think that's true. I don't know if it would be that precise for once. You're the precise.
No, I would never be. You know me. I am not precise, but just turn your tap water on hot and then just put your measuring cup underneath it. And that's it. Don't wait till there's like steam coming out.
No, right. Exactly. So just hot enough, a little higher than body temperature, I guess. That would be a good marker. So yeah, there's instant yeast and then there's active dry yeast, and active dry yeast takes longer to proof. So that's why when I make my bread, I don't proof it for 2 hours. What I do is I leave it on the counter for 6 and then I put it in the fridge overnight and then I bake it. So I think that makes for like a better taste. I want you to try it, Keeter. See what you think. If you have the patience one day.
I don't have the patience for that shit.
Remember, you didn't believe me about the chocolate inside the chocolate chips until you tried it. And look, now you don't do anything else. You see now what?
Okay, right. But like, you know what? When you come in town and I go to work, you're more than fucking welcome to go ahead.
I will.
You can make it the night before we go to sleep.
I will.
And you're more than welcome to go ahead.
You're like, you bake the bread, bitch.
I'll just eat the shit, okay?
Oh my gosh. Okay. Once you're done proofing, what's up, Keeter? What do we do next?
So once I'm done proofing, the bread that I've made, once I'm done proofing, I pour the bread out or pour the dough out onto a very well cleaned countertop. Mm-hmm. Clean it really well, please. Yeah. Please. And then go ahead and put some flour on top of the countertop and then dump your dough right on top. Now,
what are you looking for? Tell me.
So you're looking for kind of a consistency. So the dough that I had it was not as firm of a dough as you need with bread.
It was too wet.
It was too wet. You could, like when you moved it with your hands, it would just, it doesn't stay. Mm-hmm. So I did have to take I would say about a quarter of a cup, maybe a third of a cup of flour. And I did have to put it on, and I did have to kind of fold it over and knead it with my hands really quickly. It was seriously just a couple kneads. And then we had the consistency of dough. That happens sometimes with your doughs. One thing that's kind of fickle with bread also is like your temperature outside, if it's wet or not wet outside. And so sometimes it just happens. Right. And you just want that kind of texture, not like as, I wouldn't say maybe like a little bit looser than a Play-Doh. So
more squeaky.
Yeah. And what I did is at that point, I like to flavor my bread. And like we talked about in the last episode, I put a bunch of delicious aged cheddar in there and folded it over. But once I was done and it was the texture that I needed, this is the first time I've ever made bread outside of a bread maker. So if I knew the texture in my fingers, you'll know what I'm talking about when you feel the texture of dough. And it was just in a parchment lined.
Oh, okay. So now we're going to cook it.
We're going to cook it now. Yep. So it's a parchment lined, like we say, pot.
Yes.
And I did do an egg wash on top of it, and I threw more cheese on top of it. And you cook it at a high temperature. So it's cooked at 450.
Right.
For 35 minutes covered.
Mm-hmm. Sometimes you check it and you think it needs more time, cover it and pop it back in.
Correct.
You can do that.
Yes.
Easy. Yeah.
And then I took the lid off and put it back in for 10 more minutes. And that gives it that wonderful, really crispy crust on the outside. But you definitely need to cook it covered just because you are cooking at high temperature and it's going to burn if you don't cover it.
It creates steam too.
It creates steam. Exactly. And I know Mariella waited for her bread to cool down, but I just ripped into that shit. Like it was delicious.
Well, I want to we'll talk about that also, but what I do when I preheat my oven to 450, I put the pot in there so it gets hot with the oven, and I leave it there for 30 minutes. And then I leave the bread out for 30 minutes to get room temp. Because remember, I do cold fermentation, but if your bread is not cold, it's fine for it to sit for a minute while you warm the pot.
Right.
I think this makes for a more crusty crust.
Okay.
Personally.
My crust is pretty crusty, but... It
was delicious. I'm not knocking you. You don't have to be so bread sensitive, bro. Okay.
It reminded me of you. Shit. Little and crusty.
Oh my God. I have a funny story. My son says to me yesterday, "Hey, are you an adult?" And I said, "Yeah." And he's like, "But are you just a short one?" Oh my God. I was like, how the fuck?
Oh my God. Oh my God.
Oh my God. So yeah. He notices that I'm a little.
Oh my God, that kid's awesome.
Okay. All right. So then you cook it, you put the lid on, you take the lid off, you do the hokey pokey, and then I like to get it out and cool it for at least a couple hours before I get into it. Because I have something called fucking patience.
Okay, 4 fucking days later, you have a loaf of bread. All right, so that's like Mariela's making bread. Like if we're living back in 1812.
I know. You're right. I do overcomplicate this maybe a little bit, maybe. But I feel
your family's like hungry for something, and you're like, hold on.
You have to wait. No, you
gotta wait 2 more days to make you some bread.
The reason I do that is because it fucks up the texture. Because it tastes real good at the moment, but then when you eat it tomorrow, it's like gooey. That's what I don't like about it. I like it nice and dry. So that's why I do it. I have a reason, Eric.
All right, if you say so.
And then, what are you going to tell me? Listen, you can learn from me, okay? I used to make bread when I was living in the prairie of New Jersey, okay? And I have a lot of experience.
1, you're far from the prairie. 2, you're far from the prairie. I'm closer to a fucking prairie, okay, than you were in Jersey.
Oh my God, I know. No, but really, I do enjoy this process. And I used to follow this guy. His name was Mauricio. If you look up Mauricio sourdough, he has the most intense explanation of sourdough making and bread making that you will ever get for free on the fucking internet. That guy, I swear, it's almost like bread porn, the way he writes about it. Meticulous.
No, not that meticulous.
You gotta try it.
I could have fucking sold this bread for like easily, like $7-8, fucking artisanal cheddar bread. Okay.
You can. It's that good, honestly, and people will pay for it because it is so friggin' delicious.
Yeah.
So I know this sounds complicated, but it's not.
If anybody's heard us for a while, they know I'm like the king of convenience.
Right.
And this was not difficult. You know, again, this is the first time I made bread outside of a bread maker. And again, I love the bread maker for something quick or like sandwich bread, like you and I talked about in the previous episode. But honest to God, the best bread came from this oven. And
it's so crusty and good.
It was just crusty. It was delicious. It was ingredients that you have at home.
Right.
If you don't have yeast, go and get yeast. Like I said, it's a couple dollars. And like I said in the last episode, what's the worst that's going to happen? Mm-hmm. If it doesn't come out the way you like it, you learn what you like and you don't like, and you redo it when you have time again.
This is really, honestly, one of the best things to grow some balls in the kitchen, right?
It's
You can
like
confidence. Trust yourself, and you have to learn about the ingredients.
Texture and feelings and.
Exactly. So this is an amazing beginner's like view into baking.
Yeah.
You should start. You should start today. I know you guys, we cater to you guys because we feel like we know enough about food where we can talk about it to maybe people who don't know so much about food, you know?
Right.
So I promise you that this is something you can do and it will teach you so much about yourself. It's going to change your life and you're going to have something good because even when it's not good, it's good. It's like, you know, bread is like that.
Yeah. Even if you mess up a little bit, you're still going to have something tasty to eat.
Yeah.
You'll just know, oh, I didn't like this texture. Oh, maybe I want to do it Mariella's way, which is going to give you a different texture than my way or vice versa. So the good thing is you're still going to end up with something tasty.
That's it.
You know, just slather butter on it. You're fine.
Mm.
But you'll learn.
Butter is my favorite meal in the world, I think.
It's so good.
It is my favorite. And when I go to your house, I like make you.
Yeah, you do.
Have the bread and butter, and you're such a gracious host.
We have to go get a specific fucking butter, but
the good kind.
It is good. So make it, try it. And I think you're right, Monty. It's going to give you a lot of confidence in the kitchen.
Yes.
When you make that and you pull that bread out, you're like, holy shit. And you taste the difference. It really is a massive difference in what you taste.
Huge. So get out there. Send us pictures of whatever you make, even if it looks like a monster. I want to see it. I'm so excited to see all your bread making adventures. We hope that we inspired you to have some.
Go make bread. Eat it. It's delicious.
Eat it.
I love it.
I like it. I like that. That's a good tagline. Eat it.
Yeah, eat it.
It's delicious. All right, you guys. We love you. We hope you have an amazing week. And don't forget to leave us a review in your favorite podcast player and subscribe to our newsletter. We just sent out a little cheeky email about Super Bowl. Check it out because you guys still have time to get ready for that. We love you.
Love you guys.